Go ahead.
I'd like to welcome from Ballycastle Fair in the Old Amos Fair in Ballycastle, we have councillors Blaney, Brennan and McCarry, and we'd like to welcome them. And from, thank you. And from the Great October Fair in Ballinasloe, we have councillors Geraghty and Lily Broderick, the chairperson, and Mary Malloy. And from the United States of America, we have Silky Sullivan from Memphis, Tennessee. He's the man underneath the hat. Phil Griffith from Fitzgerald's Casino of Las Vegas, and who's the Grand Marshal of this year's fair. He's the elegant gentleman with the beard. And Ron Morocco is the teacher who's out of a job in the United States, and he's hoping to get employment here in Killorglin. You're welcome, Ron. And from Dublin, we've got Charlie Chalk from the Goat Inn in Goatstown, who's come along this evening with a magnificent specimen of Dublin manhood. You're welcome, Charlie, and your cohort with you. The purpose of this evening's exercise is to unveil what's underneath the black cloth. And I'd like to, first of all, call on the man who's synonymous with education in not only in Killorglin, but in Ireland, Mr. Joseph A. O'Dwyer.
Good evening, everyone. And I would like to call on Declan to, with Silky Sullivan, as we have the American flag flying, and somebody from Ballycastle to unveil the goat just now on this great occasion, and we'll have the goat from Dublin looking on. And it is very appropriate that this goat that we have here has been sculpted in Dublin.
You know how to unveil a goat?
I've never unveiled a goat before.
How is
Now, if I could tell you a little about this goat, I had always in my head that there should be a goat other than the real one in Killorglin. Just as Copenhagen has its mermaid, Dublin has its floozy and what have you, and New York has its whatever, Liberty statue. Now we have our puck goat. And should I say that this may not be the final resting place of the goat, that it is in fact a present to the Puck Fair Committee, and that if at any time they would like to move it anywhere in the town, they are welcome to do so. The only condition I have is that it weighs 3/4 of a ton. It is made from oak, solid oak. It was the oak, a trunk of an oak tree found in Wicklow. And it's appropriate that our goat, the king of the fair, should be made of the royal oak, the Quercus sicily or whatever. So, as well, like all animals in mythology, it hasn't ordinary horns, as you can see. It has golden horns. And just like the bull, the minotaur in Crete, or the centaurs or whatever, it belongs to that brand of mythology. And the horns, as you know, are very, very important in the goat world. They're the fertility indicators, and if anything were lacking in this animal as a piece of sculpture, it would be that it lacks in its undercarriage its fertility indicator. But it will become, I hope, synonymous with Killorglin, that it will initiate many other pieces of sculpture, because in Ireland, sculpture is one of the neglected pieces of art. And Sneem, say, another town in Kerry, has many pieces of sculpture, and it has been enhanced by that. And it's also very appropriate that we're looking out now on the Maclacuddy Reeks or the Gillicuddy Reeks, and so is the goat. Now, I know that when the inmates return to the school, there will be many snide remarks or jokes, so I'm not going to initiate any this evening. I will allow them to develop. I would like to thank the sculptor who is not here with us this evening. Everybody is asking, who is he? Well, he is Niall Walsh. And how did I meet him? He's a Dublin man. I sometimes, when I go to Dublin, wander around art galleries. And on one occasion, I was in the art gallery of one of our past pupils, Josephine Kelleher, who's here with us this evening. And she has the Rubicon Gallery in Mount Street in Dublin. And I saw the work of Niall Walsh there in wood, and I was very, very impressed. So I asked him. I had asked others as well, but finally I was very pleased with the idea that he had, that it should be made of oak, the royal wood, all of that. And then a few weeks afterwards he said, come and see. And I brought my mother-in-law along with me, and we went into this place in Dublin on Buckingham Street, which is in the inner city. And as we got out of the car, a man came over to us and he said, I think one of you should stay in the car while you go in. So we left Jojo in the car because of the danger zone. But anyway, we went in and we saw what we thought was the Trojan horse. It was so monstrous, and I nearly lost heart. And then some weeks later, going back, I saw it taking shape. And when you see it, you appreciate what craftsmen and artists are. The work that he achieved out of the rotund oak tree is just, in my humble experience, incredible. It's wonderful. And in his absence, he's at a wood symposium in Finland. I would like to thank him for the time, the effort. And he did this, it's also interesting, in the inner city in Dublin, and young boys out of work were taken in, and they were helping him to craft this. And on graduation day, they all had, we were there, Mossy Reardon, my right-hand man here. We hired a van in Limerick, and Mossy drove to Dublin, and I met him, and there's our friend saying that I've spoken enough already, he's bored. We went along, and all the young boys and girls there had their photographs taken for their graduation ceremony. And may I say that the Minister for Finance saw off this goat from Dublin in the company of, who was the independent TD of the inner city, Tony Gregory and Jim Mitchell. They all saw us off, and we had a wonderful day, Mossy and myself, in Dublin before this goat came down here. So I think that it is quite a goat, and when people are graduating here, if it doesn't move from here, but it is welcome to be moved elsewhere in the town. And I've been looking up about goats, and maybe you don't know that a goat has 4 stomachs. I won't tell you about its mating season. And there are many other interesting things, and the goat is a very ancient animal of 9,000 years, and oak tree is, of course, going back practically to the Bronze Age. So all of this is wonderful, and all I can wish the committee in Puck Fair is every success, that they are great down through the years, they're building up Puck Fair, and I would like to say from the school, this is a very, very small token to say we appreciate what is done in our town to all the people concerned with Puck Fair. And I hand you over to the chairman, Declan Mangan, who is the joie de vivre of Killorglin.
Thank you, Joe, and on behalf of the Puck Fair Committee, I'd like to thank you for the magnificent gesture, and to recall a Latin phrase that you tried to teach me many, many years ago: Goticus odiviricus magnificus est. the person who has put finer culture into Joe is his lifetime friend, John DeVere White, and I'd like John to say a few sensible words for a change. Is John here? John DeVere White.
Ladies and gentlemen, I won't detain you for long. Joe suggested to me that perhaps I could say some small word about the artistic value of this goat and sculpture to Ireland, and particularly to Killorglin. I personally would hope that the goat does remain here, because I believe that the visual arts have never been stronger than they are in Ireland, and I think the people who come up the avenue here and enter the school to be immediately challenged, as they will be, by this goat and made aware of the value of visual art in Ireland, I think this is perhaps the place it should remain. And I would just say to you that on an artistic note, that art, not only from a visual point of view, but art in its own simple way can have great symbolic value. And I was made aware of this today because many years ago I visited dear friends of mine who are close by now in their country house, and they were recently married, and as I looked out the bedroom window there was an old wrought iron bed upside down in the garden, and this for them was a piece of art. It was a piece of art they had discarded from the house and put in the garden, because as a family they had decided that they were anxious to procreate as rapidly as possible and had an army of children in mind. And they have a holiday house here in the area, and I was there today, and as I looked out in the garden I saw discarded another piece of art, which was a pink cot. And I realize now that this was another symbol of art to them, that their family had been created, and a vast family it is, and the cot, like the iron bed 20 years ago, had now been discarded in the garden. Now, the real purpose of me being on this privileged platform here this evening, and this I'm afraid I have sprung on O'Dwyer only in the last few days, but as you all know, this, whereas Killorglin has always been in my time, and I'm what's described in Dukes as a blow-in, but I blew into Dukes 35 years ago, and I intend to blow around Dukes until I'm blown away to the eternal beyond whatever is there. But Dukes, as I grew up in Kerry and Killorglin, I always became aware of the great seat of learning that had been created for many, many years in the town. But standing behind us now is a building that is, I think, the realization of a dream that Joe and Barbara had for Killorglin, because the school in the town in my time never quite visually measured up to what came out of it. But behind us now we have a building that I think does measure up to the extraordinary depth of learning and the wonderful value that has been donated in terms of learning to the children of Killorglin and the surrounding area, and this school now behind us does that justice. And I would say that one of the reasons perhaps was the pooling of, they always say sometimes about O'Dwyer in the last 20 years that he's changed in the ballot box, but I think the fusing of the Fine Gael influence by Barbara did influence somewhat the construction of this school, and that's an inner secret that I'll share with you. But when Barbara passed away, many of her friends got together and said that they were very, very anxious that something should be done to mark her contribution to so many people in Kerry in the last 20 years. And what was decided was that Barbara had always expressed the view that when this wonderful building was built, something had been left out, and it was something that she always regretted. And her words for what had been left out was a meditation room. And she didn't mean a meditation room in the religious sense. She meant that in the life of a school of this size, and I was talking to somebody just before proceedings started, and they are a young man, and he said that when he was at school in Killorglin, there was 100 pupils in the school, there were 3 teachers, and there were 10 in his leaving class. Now I believe there's a waiting list at the school, and there's just short of 800 pupils in the school. So Barbara always felt that in the life of a school of this size, every day there was some sort of personal crisis that some child was going through, and she always felt that the school should have a room and an area that these children could retire to for a little bit of reflective thought, and a room perhaps where groups of children who wanted to organise various activities in the school could go to meet, and a room perhaps when people came to talk to children in the school they would have access to. So a few of us got together and came up that we would launch a fund to create this room, and we had preliminary discussions with Gerard McCarthy, the architect for the school, and inside, I won't keep you long, I know it's cold, there's a drawing of a room that he sent down kindly and brought up from Cork to the school today. And I would say that this is only the beginning in terms of what we hope to create. The actual design of the room is something that will evolve over the next couple of months in discussion with Joe and with other members of the staff here. But it's, as I say, a room that Barbara always wanted for this school, and it's a room that we hope, with your generosity and help, we will now make a reality. The plans are underway now, and the fund was informally launched a couple of weeks ago, and I'm delighted to be able to say that already we've collected in excess of £4,000, and we need an awful lot more than that. So tonight was a night that we decided that we would formally launch the fund for this room, and inside we've printed a little circular which, better than I can now, explains our thoughts and our hopes. And we would ask you here, those of you connected with the school and connected with Killorglin, that perhaps you take away a few of these circulars and donate them and pass them around your wealthy friends, because it is our plan that when we meet at the beginning of Puck Fair next year here, that this room will be standing down at the end here and will be created. And that hopefully will be our contribution to Barbara, and we will hope to fulfill her wish for this room. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, John, and I hope the message of John's words will not fall on deaf ears. I'd like to invite Josephine Kelleher from the Rubicon Gallery maybe to give a few critical words, and don't be too hard on our lovely goat. Josephine Kelleher.
I'll be brief. I'm here in 2 capacities, really. As a past pupil, I'm delighted to be part of what is obviously still not going to be the finishing touches of this amazing building, because my period in the school predates this building, not by long, but by a year or 2 maybe. Secondly, although I had no hand in the actual creation of the goat, I acted as a sort of a matchmaker and at times a midwife as this goat was being born. So I sympathize with Joe, and I don't know if his alarm might be the word at seeing an 8-foot square block of oak, however royal it might be, was on that day when he first saw the goat. As my mother has often said, there wasn't an eye or nose on him. So at this stage, I'm delighted to see that the goat has eyes, nose, legs, feet and horns, and I hope long it might have those things, whether it's here or in the school. I would like to say a few words on behalf of Niall, because I know he deeply regrets not being here, but like most artists in my experience, he travels for most of his life, and he had one comment on his many visits to Killorglin. Although he's visited India, Mexico, North and South America, most of Europe, Eastern Europe and Russia, he said he's never met so many people who knew so much about goats. And he said he was in awe. His studio, and it remains that way, is papered and plastered with models, photographs, pictures and postcards of goats, which he's got from people very kindly in the town, not just from Joe himself, but I believe from almost everybody. So he would like to pass on his thanks, and in his absence, his best wishes for your new citizen as such. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Josephine. It's probably entirely by accident that the colour of the goat came out as black with a little bit of cream. And Pugfair is synonymous with another beverage which is the same colouring. And I'd like to ask Tim O'Sullivan, who's the sponsorship manager of Guinness and who has helped Pugfair an awful lot over the last 2 years, to give the final word on this auspicious occasion. Tim O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to delay you because there's pubs downtown open. I don't want to keep them waiting. But I would like to compliment Niall, the sculptor, for obliging us with the black and cream colouring on the goat. And I'm sure we won't be allowed to put a sticker on it, Declan, will we? But I wish the stay of the goat a very happy one. It's nice to have it here in the school, and as Joe has said at the outset, it might be moved around, but maybe that will come at another stage. I would like to extend a Kate Milofita to the visiting people from the various Western Ballycastle and Ballinasloe, which I have dealings with, and to a good friend in the licence trade, Charlie Chalk from the goat, who brought this lovely goat down with him here from Dublin today, and especially the Queen of Puck herself, in all her glory down there, and her assistant, and have a nice few days in Puck, and we in Guinness are pleased to be associated. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tim. And that brings to the end the formal part of the evening. Tim mentioned Susan Joy, who's the Queen of Pugfair this year, and you'll see Susan again tomorrow with the Rí an Énig an Dawn at about 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. In true Kerry hospitality, Joe has asked me to thank you for coming and to remind you that there's something for everybody in the audience inside in the school. So if you'd like to move inside. But first, before we do so, I think a heartfelt boolabas for Joe.
How are we?
Very well.
Thank you, Ron. Is that what you're calling it? Yeah, I'm calling it. Christmas or the old man.